When we think of Shakespeare, we usually think of these epic, timeless stories about love and tragedy, right? But his plays are so much more than that. They're actually a direct portal into a world that was right on the brink of collapse, an age grappling with huge changes and a total reordering of reality itself. So let's explore how Shakespeare's stage became a mirror reflecting the deep anxieties of his time.
You see, Shakespeare's stage was held up as a mirror of society, and it was reflecting this incredibly turbulent transition, a shift from the rock-solid certainty of the medieval world to the deep, questioning doubt of the Renaissance. His plays, they capture all the glorious ideals of heroism and honor, but they also expose the messy, unsettling flaws of ambition and betrayal that really defined his era.
Now, to really get what's at stake in these plays, we have to understand the fundamental belief system of Shakespeare's time. And let me tell you, it was a worldview that was incredibly complex, super hierarchical, and was believed to be designed by God himself.
At the very heart of all this was an idea called the Great Chain of Being. The best way to think of it is like the invisible architecture of the universe, a massive cosmic ladder where absolutely everything and everyone had a very specific, unchangeable place, connecting the lowest rock on earth all the way up to God in heaven.
And if you look at this hierarchy, you can see the monarch had this incredibly unique and powerful spot. They were placed just below God and the angels. So they weren't just rulers, no, they were seen as God's chosen deputies on earth, an absolutely crucial link in the chain, responsible for keeping divine order among all of humanity. So, this raises a huge question. What happens when someone is bold enough or foolish enough to try and break a link in this sacred chain? Well, as you can probably guess, the consequences were thought to be nothing short of catastrophic.
In this worldview, killing a king, regicide, it wasn't just murder, it was an act of cosmic treason. It was seen as a direct attack on God's entire plan, an act that could literally shake the very foundations of reality.
And when that divine order is shattered, the whole world goes out of balance. And there is no better example of this in all of literature than in Shakespeare's Macbeth. The second King Duncan is murdered, chaos isn't just a political problem anymore. It becomes a natural cosmic disaster.
After Duncan's death, Shakespeare shows us a world that is literally in revolt. It's terrifyingly clear. The sun disappears during the day. Horses go insane and eat each other. Violent storms just rage out of nowhere. It shows that when a leader acts against their divine duty, the consequences ripple through all of creation.
Okay, so all this external chaos wasn't just happening in politics or in nature. It was being mirrored inside the human mind. And we can actually see this turmoil reflected in the art of the time, which started to capture this new kind of inner anxiety.
The big art style of the day, known as Mannerism, basically rejected all that calm, balanced harmony of the Renaissance. Artists started moving away from peaceful, idealized scenes and instead used things like dramatic lighting and bizarre, contorted poses to visually scream out the spiritual uncertainty and inner conflict that really defined the anxiety of an age.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because this artistic shift connects directly to Shakespeare's most famous characters. Heroes like Hamlet and Macbeth are defined by their intense inner turmoil. They're plagued by hesitation and overthinking, constantly at war with themselves as they struggle between what's real and their own golden hopes in a world that's becoming more and more unstable.
So, in a world where all the old certainties were crumbling, both outside and inside, how could a ruler possibly keep control? Well, the answer was fascinating. You turned kingship itself into the ultimate performance.
For a monarch in this era, there was no such thing as a private life. Their entire existence was a role, a carefully crafted performance for their audience, which was the court. Every single word, every gesture was a calculated act designed to project stability and maintain the sacredness of power.
And just like any great actor, monarchs used props. But these weren't just objects, they were complex symbols loaded with meaning. Queen Elizabeth I, for instance, was often painted holding a sieve to perform the role of chaste virtue, or with a mask of youth to project this image of being an immortal goddess.
Shakespeare gives us the perfect example of this with Prince Hal. He spends his entire youth as this reckless party boy, but when the time comes to be king, he stages a public metamorphosis. He publicly rejects his old friends and his wild past to perform the brand new role of the authoritative King Henry V. It's a masterclass in theatrical power.
But this constant, lifelong performance, well,
it came at a tremendous psychological cost for the person who actually had to wear the crown.
You've probably heard this famous line from Henry IV. It perfectly sums it all up. It speaks to that crushing responsibility, the paranoia, and the deep, profound isolation that plagued Shakespeare's monarchs, who were basically trapped beneath the weight of their own role.
So you see, behind the public facade of absolute power and divine right, there was a private reality of immense struggle. The crown wasn't some prize to be won, it was a sentence to be served, a whole life of grunt and sweat under an absolutely unbearable weight.
Just imagine being that isolated, trapped between the crushing duties of your kingdom and the terrifying unknown dread of what happens when you die. For these rulers, carrying the weight of an entire nation's soul meant that the only final curtain call was death itself.
So when we bring all of these threads together, we can see what Shakespeare so brilliantly captured, the fundamental anxiety of his age. It's that deep tension between the old world of faith and destiny and the new, emerging world of humanism and free will.
I mean, his plays are filled with witches and ghosts and prophecies that are constantly making us question our place in the universe. But while that divine order is always there, it's never absolute. Ultimately, it seems like Shakespeare is suggesting that while fate might set the stage, it's our own human choices that write the final act.
And this is where the real genius is. It's in the cracks of that old, breaking world. Cracks that were created by human ambition, by doubt, by flawed choices. That's where Shakespeare finds this profound and timeless understanding of truth. The real power of these plays comes from their deep exploration of that struggle. How do you lead honorably in a world that is fractured and uncertain?
Which leaves us with one final thought. It's a question that haunted Shakespeare's kings 400 years ago, and honestly, it's a question that feels just as urgent today. How does a leader find honor and integrity when the very world around them seems to be breaking apart?